Even though Lucille spent almost all of his time in the Adventurers Guild, he is still a healer, and he had to return to the Healers Guild for his renewal. Kururu wasn't that happy to see him, and she immediately complained about not having enough help because he had taken Monica to the Adventurers Guild. However, she was still glad that Monica's life was safe now. Then she asked Lucille to give her his card for his renewal before asking him to wait until she finished the process, but she came back quickly in a panic. Kururu asked Lucille what kind of risky training he was doing, and she only calmed down when he answered that he had been staying at the Adventurers Guild. Kururu insisted that he tell her everything, so Lucille explained that he was training martial arts and healing the adventurers while taking Substance X for a whole year. Because of this, she thought that Lucille was some kind of masochist, but he explained that he just wanted to survive by improving his self-defense skills while increasing his holy magic affinity through practical training. Kururu refuted that he could just improve his skill by working at a clinic, but Lucille explained that he wanted to gain experience and that he wasn't healing people for the money, while emphasizing that his main goal was to learn how to defend himself. And he didn't forget to remind her that he was not a masochist. Kururu laughed after hearing the last part, but she started explaining that she could raise his rank to C, and he would be able to buy spell tomes for Cure, Middle Heal, Barrier, and Area Heal. But it would cost 90 silver coins, and the offering he has to pay will also increase. Lucille was greatly troubled to hear this, as he barely had enough money for his expenses, so he had no choice but to refuse his promotion to C rank. However, Broad suddenly showed up, and he immediately offered 1 gold coin to have Lucille transferred to the Adventurers Guild for a year. Then he gave Lucille his earnings while offering him wages to become a regular resident at the Adventurers Guild. Lucille agreed, as he couldn't refuse the money and he was still determined to hit Broad. Kururu was worried, but Lucille explained that he had been training under Broad, ensuring her that he was a trustworthy person, and then he told her that he agreed to the transfer, so she finally allowed it. Although Lucille felt embarrassed when the adventurers teased him for returning so quickly, he was still happy and satisfied, as he had multiple spell tomes he could learn for a whole year. He was also determined to get strong enough to start traveling during this period. Afterwards, Broad brought him to the cafeteria, where a welcome party was waiting for him. Seeing Lucille's arrival, Golgar immediately took out the Substance X, saying that the party couldn't start unless he toast with it. Lucille wished every adventurer and employee well before chugging the Substance X. The adventurers thought that he was really a masochist when he finished the drink, while he was wishing that everyone had to drink Substance X as well. Because everyone wanted to avoid the awful smell of the drink, Lucille was left in a corner alone. Bazin and his team joined him, but he started teasing him, asking if he was actually into guys since he never made a move with the receptionists even when he was always with them, and instead he did nothing but train. Lucille refuted that Broad would hunt him down if he did make a move, and he also explained that he didn't actually have enough time as he had only been focusing on increasing the adventurer's survival rate. Afterwards, he told them that since people don't walk around with weapons in his previous place, he was always on edge in his first 6 months in the city, and because he was fully aware of the adventurer's situation, he was also worried that he could die anytime. Bazin told Lucille that no one would dare mess with him now, but he still offered his team's help to Lucille if anything happened. Then Sephiroth asked if he really liked girls before offering to bring him with them to enjoy the nightlife in the city next time. Lucille was surprised that shops like that existed inside the city, but he started looking forward to it. Afterwards, Monica approached Lucille. She was glad that he came back to the Adventurers Guild, and then she asked how the situation was in the Healers Guild. Lucille explained that Kururu didn't have much to do in the Healers Guild before he asked Monica if she was still glad that he joined the Adventurers Guild. Monica said that she is happy at the guild as she can spend a lot of time with the adventurers and Lucille, so days just fly by quickly for her. Then she happily thanked him for saving her life. Lucille had the urge to touch her pretty face, and she doesn't seem to mind at all, but they felt embarrassed when they realized they were flirting in front of everyone. Bataculi was enraged when he found out that his income and slaves dropped by half compared to the previous year, so his subordinates explained that it was because of a healer affiliated with the Adventurers Guild. The next day, Nana Ella couldn't stop Bataculi from entering the guild's training hall to look for Lucille. Lucille had no idea who he was, so he introduced himself as Bataculi, the head of the strongest clinic in Meritoni. After thinking for a bit, Lucille remembered that Bataculi was the healer responsible for attempts on Monica's life. Bataculi ordered him to stop healing at the Adventurers Guild and work under him in his clinic, but Lucille refused right away, saying that he had been officially transferred to the Adventurers Guild and he had no reason to obey him. Bataculi was enraged, saying that his patients had decreased because of Lucille, but Lucille refuted that the patients just didn't want to go to his clinic because of its horrible reputation. Afterwards, Lucille pretended to ask some advice from Bataculi since he was his senior. He asked Bataculi what spell he was using for different kinds of injuries. Bataculi answered without hesitation, so Lucille found out that he was using high heal for even the smallest kinds of injuries, and he was charging 30 gold coins for each cast of the spell. Then he asked Bataculi what he would do to the patients who couldn't pay for his services. Although he refused to answer, Lucille knew that he would sell all those patients as slaves. Then Lucille refuted that middle heal would be enough to heal light wounds. However, Bataculi proudly said that he didn't care if the patient had a lot of money or not, as he only cared about making the most money with the least amount of time and effort. Lucille refutes that their healing magic is a gift from God to help people. Because of this, Bataculi told him that he was still green and that he could see his previous self at Lucille. Then he told Lucille that he probably hasn't experienced getting attacked by people that he was healing after completely running out of magic. After hearing this, Lucille thought Bataculi still had some goodness left inside, and then he answered that he would probably lose faith in humanity if he experienced the same thing. Because of this, Bataculi thought he had finally agreed to work under him. However, Lucille asked if he never thought about the families of the slaves he had sold, and he added that the way Bataculi works only brings misery to others. Bataculi was even more enraged after hearing it. He gave up arguing with Lucille, and immediately ordered his subordinates to kill him. However, Broad arrived, and Bataculi's subordinates were locked in his arms, unable to do anything. Then he threatened Bataculi that he would take a closer look at his business practices since he had been causing so much misfortune to everyone. Bataculi panicked after hearing his words, and he immediately ran outside of the Adventurers Guild, leaving his subordinates. Broad was surprised that Bataculi had set his sights on him. Lucille thanked Broad for saving him, and then he mentioned that he had a feeling that Bataculi was once a good healer. Broad informed Lucille that some troublemakers had been asking about him. Lucille thought that since he wasn't involved in anything shady, he shouldn't care about it. However, Broad told him that these people were trying to win Bataculi's favor. Lucille was shocked and thought that it was totally unfair. Because of the threat to his life, Broad decided that Lucille would start training like the gladiators and knights. After hearing this, he reminded Broad that he was just a healer. However, Broad told him not to worry, as his training in Substance X portions would just double compared to his training as a healer. He was even more worried because of this, but Broad told him to stop complaining and obey him if he didn't want to die. Broad was beating Lucille up even harder than usual, so even the adventurers watching him thought that he would die. But Lucille refused to stay down, so the adventurers started calling him a healer masochist zombie. Lucille complained to Monica about his nickname, but the adventurers wouldn't stop calling him a masochist zombie. Lucille realized that more adventurers started training, so Monica explained that they were following his examples, which also improved the adventurers' survival rate. On Lucille's next training session, Broad asked him to use barrier spells on himself as he decided to increase the training intensity again. Then he gave Lucille a shield and sword before saying that he would start training him to be his apprentice. Lucille was happy about it, but he was shocked when Broad suddenly forbade him from checking his status without his permission. Seeing Lucille's shocked expression, Broad explained that he wanted to prevent him from getting obsessed with his status, as it would just lead to his death. Lucille was aware that he was still far from meeting Broad's expectations of him. However, he was determined to work hard and keep improving, and he was certain that once he made it through his training, he would have a more peaceful life ahead. In a week, Lucille spent 6 days training in martial arts, fighting, swordsmanship, shielding, spearmanship, throwing, archery, scholarship, and magic. At the same time, Bataculi had his subordinates gather information about Lucille. He was enraged when he found out that Lucille was just charging 1 silver coin for 1 hour of treatment, and he thought that was the reason why he looked greedy. Then he immediately wrote a letter addressed to the head of the Healers Guild, writing that Lucille has been charging absurd prices for his service and also asking for Lucille's transfer to a different location. Then he started laughing until he choked, thinking that his plan was flawless. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and look forward to the next part.